branched out. It's mainly a CLI tool right now. But so it's a multi-agent system. I was like, hey, DaothologyAI would be awesome, but then I was like, wait, there's already like the biggest AI thing in the world, but which is Anthropic. But one of the things that came out of this was a simulator. So there's a few parts of this. It's built off of the agent kit, but then I kind of tore that whole thing apart and rebuilt it so I could really understand how it's working. And so there's one part which is kind of a single agent flow connected to Warpcast. Can do things like summon speedballs or summon yeeters. If someone asks for a speed, they're like, summon me a DAO token, then it'll do that. Let's see if there's an example of one here that worked. So this was a test one I did, and it just created the token, and it created an image, and it was just from someone casting, like, launch me a DAO token for the iron blacksmith. So that stuff's working, and I think the other things that'll be able to do, it'll be a good way to be able to do notifications, and like this DAO just launched a new proposal. There's a DAO up, or the proposal up for voting, and on the Farcaster side, it could incorporate some of the stuff you guys were just talking about with the frames, and I think that could be really cool. So let's see. So to install this, you install it local. It's pretty simple. The main thing you would need is OpenAI keys right now, and that's if you're going to be running the agent like as a Farcaster bot, then you need to host it up probably somewhere where it can have a good runtime. And so I did put it up on an EC2, and the initial experiments with that was mainly just trying to get it stable. I was also able to add a few things into the base agent kit, which was this idea of memory retention and a knowledge base. So it can pull information out. Like if I brought in the Speedball white paper, instead of having to put that into like its context all the time, if someone asks about like what is a speedball, it's going to go look in its knowledge base and then summarize and give it a relevant answer, kind of thing. It can also keep memories, and the reason that's important is and this is in a small little local database. So one of the reasons that was important was because of when you're interacting with things on Warpcast or on Farcaster, you want to know if you already replied to someone and what you replied to them with, and you don't want to continue to do that reply over and over. So that was a lot of my initial testing was with that bot that ran on Farcastle, and was able to do things like summon DAOs, check the status of DAOs, and pull up this knowledge, and then cast back out information, and then stabilizing that. And I got it on EC2. I was like, I'm going to really see if this is stable. I put it to run every 10 seconds and let it run overnight. And then I realized, oh, wait, I'm calling the OpenAI endpoint way too much, because by the morning I had $50 in charges racked up. And it wasn't even needing to make any casts. It was just hitting the OpenAI for no reason. So I optimized a lot of that stuff, so this thing will just run when it needs to. that part was pretty stable. I moved on to this DAO simulator idea, and that's kind of where this anthology AI idea came about, because what's neat about the DAO simulator is it's like a narrative creator. This is all blacked out, but that's a quote from Rick and Morty that I just thought was funny. And it's kind of like an anthology because it creates these narratives, and these narratives are building off of themselves. And there's a multi-agent system. Each agent is its own character, its own character profile. It has its own like wants and goals, and its own platform. And they're members of the DAO. And then there's one agent that is the game master. And so the game master's role is to continue moving the story forward, injecting new scenarios, new conflicts, new things for the DAO's agents to solve. Now this can all run inside of a single simulation, and it at this point it doesn't need to be connected on chain anywhere. It's just, and so I can pull that up. So this is a command line interface, like I was saying. So I'm going to do DAO run simulation. We have that off-chain flag to say that we want to run this all off-chain. It does run on-chain, but I'll talk about that in a second. So we want to run the simulation. It has the different worlds. So this is another part. Every simulation kind of has a base world attached to it. Like, is it Hogwarts? And what are the major conflicts that Hogwarts need to solve? And or like the moon is a harsh mistress, or cosmic deceptions was one I just created about the Among Us game. And there's like a fly fishing thing. This is so you can create these worlds with a script too, and so that's something else I can show you. But like, let's just go with Hogwarts. So this kicks off a simulation, and in this game simulation, it's set up for phases, and every world can have its own kind of configured phases of governance. This kind of first one that I've been working on has a very like specific flow. Initially, it creates a summary, and actually this summary is kind of the story of the governance. What's important about this is it does this every round, and a round then contains each of the phases. But because it creates the summary, of the current world, its current conflicts, and also anything that happened in that round. It's a way to prune the context so that we can continue this going on indefinitely by without just like every round growing the context. It prunes it into this couple paragraph narrative. So the GM in this case is the sorting hat. We'll introduce a scenario. The DAO members then go into a deliberation phase. This is where each of the agents will take their own character profile into account and suggest a solution. They'll do a soft signal phase where they'll signal for each other's solutions, like if they're for, against, or if they abstain from it. And then it goes into a negotiation phase, and this is where each of the DAO members will try to tweak their proposal a little bit to take into account some of the requests from the other agents. So these are kind of things that we use in DAOs, right? We do this through our kind of soft consensus phase of having forum posts and getting feedback. So we're just trying to kind of simulate that interaction. This is very naive right now, but the phases could be in different ways. Another thing with this structure here, and to keep it moving forward, I have a single player with initiative each round, and that initiative moves to the next player on the next round. That player with the initiative can make the actual like hard votes proposal. And so you can see here, Leela Fairwillow had the initiative, so she's going to try to take into account the negotiations and the other things that have happened in this round and create a DAO proposal. It'll generate some art and then submit the proposal on chain. You can see, so she wanted to effectively calm the Guardian's wrath and dispel the wild magic. We combine our proposals, blah, 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 making a team so creating like another committee. So that's our proposal. And then it goes into a voting phase, and then each of the voters will vote on chain. So if the off-chain flag was here, it wouldn't actually push these votes on chain, but it would still make a vote, and it stores it in the kind of round logs. So right now this is all on chain. The DAO, let's see, do I have a link here? So this is the proposal that she made, and you can see that the agents voted on it, and they all voted yes on this one. Oh no, actually one of them abstained. So she abstained from her own vote, which is interesting. There's some things in here that are a little funny still. So then the round resolves, and we have our tally: 2 yes, 1 no. The vote passed. And then the final thing here, because it's building this narrative, it's fun and interesting, we want to keep it moving. There's some kind of outcome, even though the proposal passed. What was like the outcome of that proposal? And in this case, the GM rolls a d20, and he got a 7, which is some kind of in the middle. So it's going to say like there was some unexpected outcomes. It kind of worked, but it just adds to this the whole narrative. So then I got a bunch of logs here, and then we can go into another round, and it'll take into account all the stuff that just happened and start again. So here's a new summary, and it's going to take into account the things that just happened. And then we go back into our deliberation, our soft signal, negotiation phase, and submit a proposal. And now it's Rowan Wispwood that has the initiative. So he's going to be making another proposal now. So I think what's kind of interesting about this, it's creating a narrative. You could get very creative on both what kind of narratives or what kind of world you create. You could base it off of a real world event. You could base it off of real DAO events. You could base it on a current DAO thing, and inject characters that are AI agents representing real world people. This isn't going to give you the exact outcome as a simulation, but it may give you some ideas. It may give you ideas on to make new proposals. It could show you different outcomes, the way things could happen. It's just like a way to kind of, in a fun way, to kind of spur those juices a little bit. One of the other things I want to do here is add some analytics, but we'll get into that in a second. The other thing I wanted to show was that you can create a sim. And so this just uses a prompt too. So you can just say generate a whole new world. Let's see, something based. We'll see what it does with this. Something based on the 1980s film War Games. So what that's going to do is it's going to create the character profiles for all the DAO members and the world file. Oh, cool. So let's see. So it created a world called Digital Frontier. And you can see that, it has a retrofuturistic world where young hackers manipulate advanced military simulations. And so it created all this stuff. It has some key challenge outsmarting the highly intelligent AI. Here's our phases list I was talking about before. So this is kind of what the world file looks like. And then it also created some characters. So we got David Lightman, Jennifer Mack, and Joshua Whopper.
Whopper.
Oh, I think I made a change right at the end. I don't see the GM file here, so I might have changed something. So where did he put it? Okay, well, so that's kind of, so now if I ran my command again, we should get a list with our new, so we got the digital frontier here. So then we could just run it and see how that runs. So I think one thing that's interesting is that now if we combine the two things I was talking about, the Farcaster agent and this one, then we get DAO simulations that are also being pushed up as notifications to Warpcast. And one thing that's interesting about this DAO simulation is it actually a simulation once it's on chain and using a real DAO? Because now you could have a real DAO with a couple DAO agents that are introducing new proposals, voting on current proposals. One of the things in the phases, like I was showing you one of the phases is to introduce a scenario. And so if there's already a proposal in the DAO, instead of the GM just making up some kind of new conflict, it'll take the current proposal that's voting and inject that into the scenario. So if a human made a proposal, I want to become a member and give me 100 shares, I'm really good wizard, then you would get the agents actually acting on that proposal. So it goes from being a simulation to, with some small tweaks, we could start thinking of this as actual agents inside of a DAO doing things based on their character profiles. So that's kind of where that's at now. We on Thursday is when I got hit with the sick, so put a freeze on the stuff, but I had a hit list that I wanted to get done. Some of it was to do that wiring up the on-chain proposal, new proposals into the new scenario thing, hook up the Farcaster notifications from the other bot that we have, try to build some more like historical, more real DAO drama that would be more interesting and contextual for people. The fully off-chain support, so you can run a DAO simulation and it just will run, which it was the default way it was running until I wired up the on-chain stuff. Now I just need to like make it handle both, and by default handle off-chain, so that if we did have that, it opens up some other kind of fun things that we can do. The option to save the full context. So the game context is being passed from round to round, even though like being kind of pruned and truncated to be interacting with our AI context. Inside of that game context, we could do a lot of other analytics around people's choices, how things, just whatever. So I think there's a lot of like kind of interesting things we could do. You could take that game context and actually build a longer form story or article or blog post or graphic novel or something with the help of AI. I wanted to set it up so that it can run really autonomously, like running. So this would be more in the case of not a simulation, but more of the agents that are actually part of a DAO and waiting for new proposals from members, maybe, and maybe they're not making their own. And then the alternate UI, I figured it would be fun to have a small little front end app where people could put in their own. So a web browser based. This would still be running local, initially at least. But instead of just interacting with the CLI. And that would give us more visual kind of stuff to play with in a browser kind of thing. I want to update the documentation, kind of pull all these things together. Other rando ideas. Okay, so Sneaky Pete, I wanted to create an agent that was just kind of evil and tries to break everything and derail everything, and see if we can handle those kind of situations. The Among Us scenario, yeah, I kind of mentioned that earlier. Longer stories, better presented. Better way to showcase the knowledge base and memory retention features that have been added. Better. And there were some other things that I'm spacing right now. My brain's kind of at 30%. But and then and the other thing on that, what I was using the Iron Blacksmith, I have a new account called the Summoner on Farcaster, which I'll set up to kind of take over that role of what the Iron Blacksmith was kind of getting honed in on. And I'll continue using Iron Blacksmith for testing these simulations. And then hopefully, at some point in the future, wire everything together so it's like one complete kind of package to show the narrative here. That's kind of where I'm at with that.